There is a moment in every human life that separates who you have been from who you are about to become. And it's not loud, it's not dramatic, it doesn't come with fireworks or applause. It comes quietly, invisibly, in the space of a single decision. Not tomorrow, not when things are easier, not when you feel ready. The moment you decide is the moment you change, and most people miss it because they're waiting for confidence. They're waiting for certainty. They're waiting for permission, when in truth, the only thing that has ever been missing is a decision made with absolute resolve. Right now, wherever you are, whatever you're facing, there is a version of you that already knows the truth. You know what needs to change. You know what you've been tolerating. You know where you've been settling. And you also know that nothing outside of you is going to save you. No new year, no perfect plan, no perfect timing. Change does not begin when your life changes. Your life changes when you decide. People don't fail because they lack ability. They fail because they lack commitment. They dabble, they try, they hope. But hope without decision is just wishful thinking. Decision is different. Decision says, this is who I am now. Decision says, no matter how I feel, no matter what it costs, no matter who doubts me, this is the line I draw in my life. And the moment you draw that line, everything shifts. Your focus changes. Your standards change. Your identity begins to change. Most people think change is about doing more. It's not. It's about deciding differently. The moment you decide you will no longer accept excuses, you stop making them. The moment you decide you will no longer live in fear, fear loses its power over you. The moment you decide that your past does not define you, it stops controlling you. Your life is shaped not by what happens to you, but by the meaning you assign to what happens and the decisions you make because of it. Think about this for a moment. Every breakthrough you've ever admired in another human being came down to a moment where they decided enough is enough. They didn't suddenly become fearless. They didn't suddenly have all the answers. They decided to move forward despite fear. They decided to act without guarantees. They decided to trust themselves before the world believed in them. And here's the truth most people avoid. If you haven't changed yet, it's not because you can't. It's because you haven't decided. You've negotiated with yourself. You've delayed. You've told yourself stories. But the quality of your life is the quality of the decisions you make when no one is watching, when it's uncomfortable, when it costs you something. Decision is an act of identity. When you decide, you're not just choosing an action, you're choosing who you are. You're saying, I am the kind of person who follows through. I am the kind of person who does not quit on themselves. I am the kind of person who rises when it's hard. And once identity shifts, behavior follows automatically. Your brain is wired to move you toward what you decide is important. The problem is, many people decide unconsciously. They decide that comfort matters more than growth. They decide that avoiding pain matters more than achieving greatness. They decide that staying the same feels safer than stepping into the unknown. And then they wonder why nothing changes. Change is not a matter of willpower. It's a matter of standards. When your standards change, your life changes. When you decide this is unacceptable, your mind will find a way. When you decide this is a must, your nervous system aligns. You stop asking, can I? And you start asking, how will I? Look at your life right now and ask yourself honestly, where have I been waiting instead of deciding? Where have I been hoping things would change instead of choosing to change them? Where have I been living in potential instead of living in action? Because potential without decision is pain. It's knowing you're capable of more and refusing to claim it. The moment you decide is the moment you stop being a victim of circumstances and start being the author of your story. It's the moment you stop blaming your past and start using it as fuel. It's the moment you stop waiting for motivation and start creating momentum. Momentum doesn't come from big actions. It comes from absolute commitment to a direction. Once you decide, even the smallest action taken in alignment with that decision has power. Your walk changes, your voice changes, your energy changes. People feel it. Life responds to it. And yes, fear will still be there. Doubt will still whisper. Resistance will show up. But decision silences the debate. Decision ends the argument in your head. Decision says, this is happening, period. And when there is no internal conflict, all your energy moves forward. You don't need to know how it's going to work out. You don't need to see the whole path. You only need to decide who you are and what you will no longer tolerate. The rest will reveal itself as you move. Right now, this moment is not ordinary. Moments like this don't come often. This is one of those moments where you can hear the truth clearly before the noise of the world rushes back in. This is the moment where you choose whether this is just another speech you listen to or the line in your life where everything changed. Because years from now, you won't remember the fear. You won't remember the uncertainty. You will remember the moment you finally decided to stand up for yourself, to believe in yourself, to commit to your life with everything you had. The moment you decide is the moment you change. Not later, not someday. Now, the moment you decide with certainty, something far deeper than behavior begins to change, because decision is not just an action, it is an identity shift. Most people think identity comes after success, after proof, after results, but that's backwards. Identity comes first. The instant you decide who you are and what you stand for, your standards rise automatically. You stop negotiating with yourself. You stop asking for permission. You stop waiting for the world to validate you. You begin to move differently because you see yourself differently. Every human being lives according to the standards they accept. Not the standards they talk about, not the standards they wish they had, but the standards they enforce when it's inconvenient, uncomfortable, and unseen. And standards are born from decisions. When you truly decide, this is who I am now, your nervous system locks in, your mind stops drifting, your energy consolidates. You are no longer trying to change, you are being who you decided to be. Think about the times in your life when change actually lasted. Not the times you felt inspired for a few days, but the times when something shifted permanently. Those moments didn't come from motivation. They came from a line being drawn. A moment where you said, never again, or from now on, or this ends today. That was not willpower. That was identity taking over. Most people live with low standards because they have not attached their identity to something greater. They say things like, I should, I'll try, I hope. And those words reveal uncertainty. Identity speaks differently. Identity says, I don't do that anymore. Identity says, this is non-negotiable. Identity doesn't need to shout. It's calm, grounded, absolute. The moment you decide, your standards rise because you are no longer willing to betray who you believe yourself to be. You stop tolerating what you once endured. You stop accepting excuses you once justified. You stop returning to patterns that no longer match your self-image. That is why decision is so powerful. It reshapes what feels acceptable to you. Your brain is constantly trying to stay consistent with who you believe you are. If you see yourself as someone who quits, your brain will find reasons to stop. If you see yourself as someone who follows through, your brain will find ways forward. The decision creates the identity, and the identity dictates the behavior. This is why change feels exhausting for people who haven't decided. They are fighting themselves. One part of them wants growth, another part wants comfort. One part wants more, another part wants safety. That internal conflict drains energy. But when identity is clear, there is no war inside. Action becomes simpler because it aligns with who you are. Raising your standards is not about demanding perfection. It's about refusing to live beneath your values. It's about deciding what kind of person you are when things are hard. Anyone can perform when it's easy. Identity is revealed when no one is watching, when progress is slow, when fear is loud, when results are invisible. The world does not decide your standards. Your past does not decide your standards. Other people's opinions do not decide your standards. You decide. And the moment you do, your life begins to reorganize around that decision. You start making different choices without forcing yourself. You start saying no without guilt. You start saying yes without hesitation. People often ask, how do I stay consistent? How do I stay disciplined? How do I stop falling back into old habits? The answer is not more pressure. The answer is a stronger identity. When your identity is weak, habits collapse. When identity is strong, habits form naturally. You don't need reminders to act in alignment with who you believe you are. Look at your life and ask yourself where your standards truly are, not where you want them to be. Your relationships reflect your standards. Your health reflects your standards. Your income reflects your standards. Your self-talk reflects your standards. None of these are accidents. They are the result of decisions you've made consciously or unconsciously about what you will accept. The most dangerous thing in life is not failure. It's living below your identity. It's knowing you are capable of more and choosing less. That gap between who you are and who you know you could be is where frustration lies. And that gap closes the moment you decide to raise your standards and step into a new identity. Decision collapses time. Years of hesitation can end in a single moment of clarity. The moment you decide, you stop waiting for proof and start becoming the proof. You don't need to feel ready. You need to be resolved. You don't need confidence. You need commitment. When you decide with certainty, life begins to test you, not to punish you, but to confirm who you are. Challenges show up to see if your identity is real or temporary. And every time you respond in alignment with your decision, that identity becomes stronger, more embodied, more natural. Your standards are not raised by thinking differently. They are raised by deciding differently, by declaring what you will no longer tolerate, by choosing what you will consistently live for, by aligning your actions with the person you claim to be. This is how lasting change begins, not with intensity that fades, but with identity that endures. The moment you decide who you are, your standards rise, your actions align, your life begins to reflect the power of that decision. Most people are waiting for confidence to show up before they act, waiting for clarity to arrive before they move, waiting for fear to disappear before they commit, and that waiting is the very thing keeping them stuck. Confidence is not a prerequisite for change. Clarity is not a prerequisite for change. Feeling ready is not a prerequisite for change. Decision is. A non-negotiable decision cuts through uncertainty like a blade. It ends the internal debate and replaces hesitation with momentum. Think about how many times you've told yourself, once I feel confident, then I'll start. Once I understand everything, then I'll move. Once I'm sure I won't fail, then I'll commit. But life does not reward certainty. Life responds to commitment. Confidence is something that follows action, not something that precedes it. Clarity is revealed in motion, not in waiting. Fear does not disappear when you decide. Doubt does not vanish. Questions do not magically get answered. What changes is that those voices no longer get a vote. Decision removes their authority. When you decide, you're not saying you won't feel fear. You're saying fear will not stop you. You're not saying you understand everything. You're saying you'll figure it out as you go. Most people are exhausted not because life is hard, but because they are living in constant internal conflict. One foot on the gas, one foot on the brake. They want change, but they're afraid of loss. They want growth, but they're attached to familiarity. That tug of war drains energy. Decision ends the war. Decision brings alignment. When a decision becomes non-negotiable, your brain shifts into a different mode. It stops scanning for escape routes and starts scanning for solutions. It stops asking, what if this doesn't work? And starts asking, what's the next step? Momentum is born the moment the mind no longer considers retreat an option. You don't need confidence to take the first step. You need commitment. Confidence comes from keeping promises to yourself. Every time you act in alignment with your decision, even when it's uncomfortable, confidence grows. Every time you hesitate and pull back, confidence erodes. Confidence is built through action taken in uncertainty. Clarity works the same way. People think clarity comes from thinking harder, analyzing more, waiting longer. But clarity comes from engagement. When you move, when you act, when you step into the unknown, Information appears. Feedback appears. Direction sharpens. Stillness breeds confusion. Motion creates understanding. Look at any area of your life where you feel stuck and you'll find a decision that hasn't been made. You've left the door open. You've given yourself an exit. You've told yourself you'll try instead of committing. And trying keeps options open. Decision closes them. That's why it's powerful. That's why it's uncomfortable. A non-negotiable decision does not mean you know how. It means you've decided you will find a way. It means quitting is no longer part of the plan. It means discomfort is temporary, but regret would be permanent. It means you stop managing fear and start using it as fuel. The strongest people are not the least afraid. They are the most committed. They feel fear and move anyway. They feel uncertainty and take action anyway. They don't wait for inner alignment. They create alignment by deciding first and letting their emotions catch up later. Your nervous system responds to certainty. When you are uncertain, your body hesitates. When you are resolved, your body mobilizes, energy increases, focus sharpens, procrastination fades, not because the task became easier, but because the decision removed ambiguity. This is why motivation fades, but decision endures. Motivation is emotional. It comes and goes. Decision is structural. It creates a framework your life begins to follow. When something is non-negotiable, you don't argue with yourself about it. You don't wake up every day debating whether to show up. You show up because that's who you decided to be. Think about the simplest example. You don't negotiate whether you brush your teeth. You decided long ago that's what you do. There's no confidence required, no motivation needed. That's the power of decision. When applied to your goals, your health, your boundaries, your future, it becomes transformative. Most people don't fail because they chose wrong. They fail because they never fully chose at all. They hovered, they hesitated, they kept one foot in the old life and one foot in the new. That split creates instability. Decision creates grounding. You are not behind because you lack talent. You are not stuck because you lack intelligence. You are stuck because you have not made the kind of decision that removes alternatives. The kind of decision that says, this happens no matter what. The kind of decision that doesn't depend on mood, circumstances, or approval. When you decide at that level, something remarkable happens. Life begins to meet you. People appear, resources appear, opportunities appear, not because the world suddenly changed, but because your focus did. You started looking for ways instead of reasons. You started seeing openings instead of obstacles. This moment right now is proof that you don't need confidence to change. You don't need clarity to begin. You don't need fear to disappear. You need to decide what is no longer acceptable and what becomes non-negotiable from this point forward. The decision itself is the turning point. Everything before it was preparation. Everything after it becomes progress. And the longer you wait to decide, the longer you stay exactly where you are. Change does not begin when you feel ready. It begins when you decide that staying the same is no longer an option.